Okay, so we are back. Okay, boom. So I just wanted to do a recap video of the sprint, how it went for the Future Vision XPRIZE competition, specifically in the deadline I had to hit for my proof of concept for LEOM, the script I've had for a number of years. We've been documenting it on the channel. Um, it went through a lot of phases. So if you've been following along, you know this was first a live action stunt, professional stunt team on green screen. We're gonna take the live performance capture of actors to cross that uncanny valley and then composite it onto generative backgrounds and whatnot. Um, and just as it approached, it didn't pass the eye test so much for it with the resources that would just throw in the kitchen sink at it. It wasn't quite there in terms of preparation. So we went totally generative for the submission. Um, and yeah, the pivot came late and it started, 2 weeks to the deadline. So start of August, really. Um, and fully committed to it only a week prior. So I had a week to kind of get everything together and get into the generative tools. So learning process, but I'm overall very happy with how it came out. Basically, the trailer is also different from what was seen and kind of shown on some of the days, as I wanted to make it more one to one with the actual script, which wasn't the original kind of plan, but got it closer to that, which I was happy about. And basically, the trailer storyline, it's heavy narrative, um, and you know it happens after the events of the first film. So of the film, of the script for the treatment I submitted, basically in between the first two films of the trilogy, and got into it. And yeah, so wanted to just kind of break down all the steps of how I went about everything. So one of the first things I did was get everything um, storyboarded out in just grayscale so I could see. And I kind of showed in the shot list that accompanied that on one of the days of the sprint. Again, it changed, but I wanted to just get the visual, the shots, tinker with kind of the camera angles, what it would be, how the camera would move, and just the description and get that context into the model. So this breakdown is, I'm hoping, will be heavier on the actual context loading and, kind of what tying it back to what the core of this channel is, which is adoption of the tools. But this is a totally different process using diffusion, generative video models and tools, image heavy workflow. So got all the images in grayscale, didn't even want color, nothing, laid it all out, and then slowly but surely, refine that process, put it all into my CRM, which has, well, it's a canvas view, it has a whiteboard in there. So just so I could see, and shout out PJ Ace for that idea. I love working in the whiteboards, but it was a good reminder that this was another use case for whiteboards, is being able to handle all those images. And what's in my CRM, the backbone of it is just Excalidraw, which is an open source tool. So got everything in there, and then went to, once I saw everything, okay, now we're gonna do the color keys, the color pass, replacing the graphite version. So the Canon grew with the pivot to 266 shots. Um, what was used was not that many, but in the final trailer, but 266 shots, and the review loop looked like basically um, getting a dashboard and on just Liam film behind the sign in for the crew, and going in and seeing all the revision history. So very cleanly laid out, like, it started here V0 and went to V3, and then I could then approve. So I built that. And then I could approve, okay, hey, what's going to get the video pass? I could see the input prompt. So I was very kind of in the loop there. And yeah, basically giving the go ahead to certain shots. And then, then there was a video aspect too, where the video might have needed a couple different revisions as well. But just kind of an admin kind of dash with that. Then came, yeah, the decision layer of what was actually going to be I wanted in one folder, one directory that would actually come into the code base, the LEOM code base, joining all the just context markdown files for the docs, in which then I would go into Premiere Pro and actually start the editing process and the timeline that I have some familiarity with in the past, making fun videos and whatnot, home videos. And yeah, so we had the motion versions then, and now we were, had the decision layer. So I had the core 266 shots rendered. As you can imagine, number of $100 for that. I used a aggregator called fal.ai for the majority of shots came for VO3, Google's model, as well as Seedance, as well 2.5, as well as Kling. So generated with all the tools, what would be best for what shots and whatnot. There was some analysis there, and then basically came the video and the edit. There was some voiceover work that was used. I used ElevenLabs, and just with their basic or $18 a month tier, and was able to pick a number of voices or 3 voice actors, voice roles. So that was actually a process of spending some time in there. And then came, okay, I need some background music. This has got to, have a, that's kind of the core of, in my eyes, like in the past when I've edited in timelines, it's the music is one of the first things to understand the cuts and where the cuts are going to take place and overall kind of ambiance and feel, all that good stuff. So I had a placeholder of in Suno that I created, the music generative music platform Suno. And then I was looking on BeatStars for something that was a little bit better. Come to find out that BeatStars and the licensing there is much more tailored to the music industry. It wasn't totally clear to me that the license that I would buy on BeatStars, and I found a number of great ones that I wish I could have used that maybe encapsulated the vibe a little bit better. But ultimately wanted to stay within the contest rules. So went back to Suno, did some tinkering, settled on some like very like trumpet heavy brass. And that was, in the timeline. And then it was just, having those ElevenLabs scripts generated. And then, just doing work in Premiere. So I'd go in, have everything. And then the last step really was using ElevenLabs again for the sound effects. So I would, do a number of whooshes and just a bunch of descriptions of to kind of enhance, as I knew audio had sound effects would, there's all this like metal and whooshing and jetpacking and exhaust going and picking up and retracting of certain things. So, and then just some like more trailer-esque like bum 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 stuff. So did that. That was kind of the final layer, the final pass. And yeah, that was kind of the crux of the process there. So a canvas, just kind of approving everything there. I also use another tool I developed, Wabbit, wab.ai, WABB, which I pulled in for reference for videos in some of this decision making process. I'd kind of, they were bigger to, not as clear me having to be in the loop, but more so, hey, generate a number of these, and then I'm going to whittle down 1 through 10 and give the best rankings. So I brought in all Spider-Man, Iron Man, Mandalorian type shots at an agent, whether it be Gemini or Claude or Codex. I kind of juggle all of them. I would go and it would just kind of filter in, go on YouTube, cut those videos up into however many seconds. And there's like 1,000 records that I went through just to get a sense of like, all right, what could these be used for, to like kind of just to understand the movement a little better on my end, to basically see the sport of Neolax, this grappling staff and jetpack, kind of a lot of physics going on. So I wanted a bunch of physics looks, and just to see like in a very meaningful way how the movement would align. So I use tools like that kind of in the process to for the revisions and whatnot. But yeah, it all starts canvas, just graphite pass, and then it turned into, okay, let's color all that. And then all those images were inputs for the video model prompts to essentially go in and reference that, get the idea of everything there. And there was also a matrix pass of, hey, this is all of our character lists in a number of rows. Call it the first 10 rows. Here are all the characters in. And then here are the columns of what's their jetpack uniform, what's their just like face identity, what's their jetpack that they wear, what's their specific scythe staff that they use, what's their casual outfit. So there's a matrix there in terms of assigning everything so it could reference what it needed to for the shots, and that was a good reference point. But yeah, that's roughly the process. The video, number of revisions, that's where we went to that admin kind of dash to determine everything, and then use the audio tools, brought everything into a Premiere timeline, and was able to just craft the trailer. If you haven't seen it, you can check it out. It is public, and yeah, so now I'm just you know, kind of in the process of waiting to see if I made the cut. There's a bunch of cool judges in it, and there's a ton of submissions, and I was super humbled by all the other competitors in the Slack workspace and their final work. Just super cool stuff. But yeah, I'm in the camp that my video was good, not amazing. Wish I had done a pivot sooner, but I mean, great learning process, new workflow for the tools that I had not been accustomed to, coming from a background of just for clients doing and personal productivity, research and lead generation and just context engineering and actual builds of a number of things. Mentioned the CRM, personal dash, websites for people. And that basically infuses non-determinism. So it takes the LLMs and infuses it into businesses. So that's kind of more so what I'm in on, my use case on a day-to-day basis with the tools. So this is it was a great learning process. So went through it. Definitely wish did the pivot sooner, but I think the strength of my submission was more so in the script that I've been developing for 6+ years. And even before that, there was versions that dating back to middle school. But yeah, this is a competition that's optimistic view of the future, and I'm a huge sci-fi nerd, huge fantasy nerd. So and I'm using the tools every day. I came in, I went going through the process of a live shoot, had some issues with people dropping out once they learned it was AI, which I wasn't trying to hide. I just didn't with putting it on a green screen, you got to assume a computer is being used in some capacity, but the generative aspect just totally took some people out. So even from a communication standpoint, had some awesome new workflows in terms of communication with a bigger team. I'm more so kind of like have stakeholders of X amount of people, and roles are super clearly defined. And when there's way more kind of people and organizing to do for like a live event that has to be a super tight 2-day window, taking advantage of a live shoot 3-day window, 2-day on green screen. Everything's got to be super tight to get all the shots in. I mean, mentioned 200+ shots. So have some new kind of slash commands, new agent workflows that from this process that I'll roll into the communication layer of my regular work, my regular day-to-day builds and whatnot. So just wanted to do a quick kind of recap video and just check out the trailer. It's pretty decent, and the treatment and script is live on leomfilm.com. You can go check it out. Feedback much appreciated, and all that good stuff, as well as support on the video. But Anyway, if you have any questions on this process, sound off below. I realized I hadn't done a recap video, so I wanted to just do this quick one out. I might, if I might go more into depth on certain things. But yeah, for now, that is the high level recap, and hopefully, I've enjoyed this sprint. I'm sure, there will be a number more, and yeah, so stay tuned, and just for vibe coding workflows and whatever else, adoption of the tools. Stick around, check out the channel, and yeah, all the best.